morning, I'm Bill Cook from Greenlee County Cooperative Extension. We're doing some valve repairs here today. How do I know this valve is leaking? Well, over there in a low spot, we had some seepage. What that tells me is that this valve is not shutting off tight and that water is leaking through it and coming out at the low point. So that can be caused by a number of things. In this particular case, little PVC shavings had gotten between the valve seat and the valve gasket. There's a couple of divots here where this soft plastic closed on one of those little shavings. When you're installing valves and stuff like that, always flush them out a little bit. Ideally before you even put the valve on. But this did not get properly flushed, and we had all these little shavings of PVC from using a saw that got between the valve seat and the gasket. We have a new diaphragm, and you'll see that different models of valves have a different style of a diaphragm. The one thing you want to be sure of is to line up this hole, which goes underneath of here where the solenoid. And you'll see on this one, there's a little port that lines up with the solenoid on that one. That's common in almost all valves. To put this in, of course, we've already taken it off. This is called the bonnet. And the one thing you'll see with a bonnet is, even the different styles, they all have a spring. Some of them have a little thing here called a metering rod. Some do, some don't. What we're going to do is, we're going to take our new diaphragm. We've flushed this out. We have clean surfaces. And you can see, this is the little weep hole where the solenoid goes. We put this in like that. We line this up, and then making sure that we don't knock the spring off one side or another, we want to make sure that lines up. We carefully put this on here, and we line that up. Depending on the style of the valve is how many screws or nuts hold it on. So then when we snug these up, run them all down finger tight. Then when we tighten them, we're going to do this in a pattern similar to torquing the head onto an engine or something. So we'll snug that one a little. We'll go crossways. We'll snug that one a little. And we'll snug that one a little. Because what can happen is that if you don't crisscross it, that soft plastic bonnet will not snug down evenly, and you'll have a leak. So now the next thing is the solenoid, which is also a potential source of a leak. This is the typical solenoid, and you can see this little plunger goes in and out. Well, if that thing sticks, or if it gets a piece of grit under that little rubber gasket, water can pass through the solenoid and come out at the end. So if you find that it's your solenoid leaking, oftentimes you can take it apart, make sure not to lose the spring. You can clean that out with a Q-tip or something, get it nice and clean, put a little shot of WD-40 on it, and you're good as new, unless that little rubber gasket is the problem. The next part is, we'll put the solenoid back on, and then we will connect the wires. Now there's a couple of different ways to do this. A real simple method is to use a butt connector. After I've stripped the end, I put it in there, and as you go, make sure it's tight so that it gets a good contact. And we check that, and that's good and tight. Because there's moisture down in the box, something I like to do is apply a little bit of liquid tape. You can get this at just about any hardware store. And it never hurts to let it dry a little bit and put a second coat on if you like to be sure. Now here's another way of connecting these. You can use a wire nut. And where you have more than one wire or two wires, that's very handy. So the reason that there's 3 instead of 2 is one comes from the timer and then another one connects and it runs right over here to the next valve box. So we're going to put these together and we're going to twist this wire nut down nice and tight. Oops. Well, now see, there's the reason we check it right there. So we're going to redo that. And then again, I like to seal this because it is down in that damp environment. And there you have it. We're wired up. So of course the next thing to do is to turn the supply on. And we still have water running through there. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to go over to the timer and see if this is supposed to be running right now, if we have electricity here. If not, the next thing that we will look at is this solenoid. So this is valve repairs.